Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at player props for the second round NBA playoff game here. Nuggets and the T-Wolves in Denver. Already got a best bets video accomplished and in the bag for you guys as well. So make sure to check that out. Subscribe to the page and continue to follow along all postseason with us. Bring you these videos each and every day now, not even missing these weekends, as you can tell. Definitely also want to head to thelines.com, especially when it comes to those player props. You can use that prop finder tool up there to make sure that you're getting the best odds available to you from all of these books that are giving us bets this postseason. Nate, let's keep it rolling here, my man, and get into our best player prop, we'll call it here for Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I got two here, just based on your taste, which is Joker to go to hit 2 threes is plus 140. It's quite tempting. I mean, it's going to be heavily dependent on whether he hits. He's probably looking at 3 attempts or more. And Aaron Gordon to not hit a 3, which is minus 110 at one book at least. Most books juicing that up because he sometimes doesn't even take threes. But I mean, it's somewhat correlated because I think Jokic tends to operate more on the perimeter against Rudy Gobert and these Wolves, right? I mean, because he knows where does he have the advantage. He's not going to try to bang down low. I mean, against an AD in the last series, right? He can put him in the basket. Rudy ain't that guy. Like, Rudy is somebody who he wants to get out on the perimeter, moving his feet, hit a 3 to set the tone if possible, and then open everything up for the whole team. And that's why we saw, I mean, the last 3 in the playoffs last year against Rudy, he went 10 for 19 from 3 and averaged 2.8 makes at 50% in the last 4 in that series. He takes way more threes against Gobert than he does against any other team on a consistent basis. This season went 3 for 11. Love the attempts, first of all. I mean, that won't get you there in terms of the average makes. But, I mean, he does tend to make these shots. I mean, his last 10 regular season games against Rudy, he shot 51%. And he shoots 44% when Jamal Murray is in the lineup and 24% when he's not, even though the attempts go slightly up without Jamal because he's just kind of forced. But I think, Jamal's in there and he's also going to be pressured all the way up and down the floor, right? For 48 minutes by Jaden and Nah. And that's going to, he's going to make the right read. He's going to say, like, I'm coming around the corner and I'm being swarmed. And that means maybe Joker sets the pick up higher and then he pops because, they're trying to get those guys off of Jamal. So, I mean, I'm giving you the 2 bets because if you really want to bet this Joker thing, you're going to live and die by like his 3 or 4 or 5 attempts, like whatever he winds up putting up. And you're just going to be like, please, like get the attempts because it really just depends on how they're playing him. But I think the Wolves, the way they defended him and the way he's tried to set the tone means he will take at least 3 threes.
Yeah, it was a popular bet that got juiced down in last year's playoffs when he kept hitting them in the playoffs, to your point, hitting 2 of them a game, specifically against the Wolves. So it's not a bad look to go back to, especially because we might even just call this some pretty good value by the time that we get to game 2 or 3. And he's done this a couple times and then you see that go away. So if the attempts are there, then I'm good with it. I would love it if it was 5. If it's not 5 attempts, then yeah, it's a little bit of a riskier bet. But plus 140 is still enough juice to give you an edge if you assume he's going to shoot potentially 4 in this one, as he's obviously had a pretty good percentage, and he's usually pretty open is the key factor here. Is like they're all good looks. He's not taking contested threes usually, and even when he is, he's freaking 7-1 shooting from back here. So let me get into Nah, as you called him, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I am going to call him Nah. I'm not saying that 7-syllable name every time. So for Nah, it's under 12.5 PRA. And like that might seem low considering that this dude scored more points than that in a game in this last series, but that is just everything about it. Like I talk about Cat in the best bets video. We're going to talk about Naz Reid in this one as well. And they're both correlated to the game flow and the difference in game flow between this series for the Timberwolves and the last one where they played the Phoenix Suns, right? And in the Phoenix Suns series, you needed Nickeil in there. He had a ton of minutes. He saw about 30 and 32 minutes in the final 2 games of that series. And only one other one did he really go like below his season average. And the other 2, he also had that many minutes. So, or other one, yeah, because it was a 4-gamer. There was a sweep in that one. But he was the 6th man. It was when he was coming off the bench as well, right? Like he was one of the first dudes, if not usually the first dude off the bench in all 4 games. And that was just because it was like the only reason you're not starting is we have our starting lineup. We're not taking Cat out of the starting lineup, but we are going to limit Cat's minutes all the way down to like 25 or even 23 in some instances, because he's just not meant for this series as far as like defending what the Suns are going to put out there, right? That's not going to be the case anymore. Plus, some of those minutes for Na were a little bit inflated by the fact that like Cat got into foul trouble, and then they needed him to close games because of the lineups that the Suns would put out there, oftentimes taking Nurk off the floor. I mean, you could not have Cat and Rudy on the floor at the same time for some of those closing lineups against the Suns. Now you're talking about like at all times 3 dudes that are almost 7 feet on the floor between MPJ and Aaron Gordon, obviously alongside Joker. And Aaron Gordon's like 6'8", plays like he's like 7 feet, right? Like 6'11". Like he's a really big dude down low, obviously. And is a problem. He's going to like, I don't even think you put Jaden McDaniels on him, which we saw last series. Like really last time they played in even in the regular season series, rather, is what I'm referring to. You saw a little bit more Ant actually guarding Gordon at times because there wasn't really much room down low anyway. So they weren't worried about Gordon going down low. But at this point for Nickeil, there's just not really much of a good matchup that you're just going to keep on him. Like, especially if you have Jaden McDaniels just hawking Jamal the whole time, and you'd rather have that in there. Now, if Nickeil gets in, it's in for Jaden McDaniels. It's not in for Cat anymore. And at that point, you're not worried about him playing those closing lineups, which is my main point here. So if you look at him, Nickeil, and you project him at about like 27-ish minutes, I mean, even if I think that even is going to be high at times, and you'll see him closer to 20 than you will to 30 minutes for Na. But in those situations, especially also I should mention slow-mo, Kyle Anderson is also a little bit better for this type of series as a guy that you trust against the Nuggets, because the Nuggets don't make boneheaded plays, and you can't afford to have silly turnovers or anything of that nature. And Na and Jaden McDaniels, they've been good, but they're also a lot less of the savvy vet, right, than Kyle Anderson is. So that's another dude that could eat into his playing time. And then really when he plays those, if you look at like, you can filter all these stats pages and stuff to just like when he plays this amount of minutes. And if you look at it and say his floor is about 20 minutes and his ceiling is about 27 minutes, and that's something that he's done consistently, like playing around those minutes when you have all 5 of the Timberwolves starters available this season alongside Na playing, he usually gets in between 20 to 27 minutes, averaging right at about 25 and a half. And he gets about 9.5 PRA in that time. So I've just put all the stats together for him to go under 12 and a half. Seems like a low number, but it's still, like I said, going to be good if you put him at the minutes and the averages that he had during the regular season, and assume that he has to go back to those numbers because the matchups indicate it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess you see the spike in his minutes at the end of the series against Denver last year is due because Jaden McDaniels is out for the entire series, right? And he's still like right around this prop, even with 38 minutes down the stretch there. I mean, he kind of shot an outlier series against the Suns team too, just like feeling himself after shutting down Bradley Beal or whatever he was doing there. I mean, I think the playing time is going to be pretty secure. Like I'm not gonna say we're fade him because of that, but I think it's because of the defense. I think it's because of he's going to tag team on Murray, and especially in that second quarter when Jokic sits, like he's going to be out there guarding Jamal and using his energy on that end, and not necessarily piling up counting stats. But our guy Naz Reid is we do expect him to go over 11.5 points and rebounds against what might be the worst bench in the playoffs remaining, these Denver Nuggets, as far as defense goes, as far as like the front court goes, for sure. Like, I mean, they just have to stagger Aaron Gordon's minutes so that they have a competent big man back there. They don't have to dust off DeAndre Jordan. But I mean, this is what he averaged against Phoenix in just 18.4 minutes per game. And the books are hanging the same number, expecting the same amount of playing time, when he's probably much more suited to play in this series, and honestly could play a little bit at the expense of Cat if Cat is not making the right play. And he has long history of making terrible plays in the playoffs. But I mean, I actually kind of like more the fact that Naz is not in the starter's role. You look at his last 2 against Denver as a starter for Cat, and he sucked. I mean, 10 points per game on a 63 offensive rating. The previous 2, he averaged 20, or he dropped 27 and 8. He didn't average that. But, 61% field goal shooting off the bench in that comfortable role. I mean, in this series against Phoenix, he didn't get that many opportunities, but on his 3.5 drives, averaged 2 free throws on those and shot 50%, attacking the rim. And Denver allowed, I mean, because they've been playing the Lakers, they allowed the most field goal attempts at the rim, most paint points, and the fourth worst percentage It's not like they have great rim protection back there. The Wolves scored the third most paint points as a team against the Suns, and Rudy, I mean, he has not been a very high usage guy when he's played the Joker, like 9.2 points per game on 13% usage his last 5 against Jokic. And Cat's last 4 playoff numbers against Denver are pretty unsightly. So I think there's an opportunity for Nas to be the big who's kind of burning this team, finding the right mismatch and scoring off the bench.
Yep. I'm with all that. I definitely was on the Nas stuff with you as well. Not much to add except for just, it's back to being something that's his series. It's directly correlated to the Na bet, which I mentioned a minute ago. So I'm completely in favor of that. And I don't think that there's going to be a problem between Cat and Nas Reed in terms of the minutes, because Cat will still be made for this series. Nas is still going to get those backup minutes, to your point. And then he'll be looking at some Aaron Gordon matchups, like you said. I'm starting to really agree with you, and I want to see how it goes in the first round or the first game of this round. But like Aaron Gordon to get a lot of overs seems like a pretty good look when he's going to be the best player maybe on the court when you've got second units out there. And I'm sure they'll still be looking at a lot of Jamal minutes as well alongside him. But I am fading Jamal in game 1, and I could see his props drop a little bit. And I'm doing it in part because I do want to see how healthy he is. But I'm also doing it because Jaden McDaniels is filthy. I'm pretty sure we all watched him in this last series look like the MVP of that series, if you just really, really strongly count the defensive side of the ball of the floor a little bit more, because Ant was also just unreal. But there was also one game Jaden McDaniels outscored him and looked like the best dude on the floor. So I'm taking him to continue that and taking under 34.5 PRA for Murray. You're still going to see Jaden McDaniels minutes just be, super high. They're going to be right at the 38 minute mark there in this game. That's exactly where I'd put him. And for Jamal, is he healthy? Like how healthy is he? And is he going to be as effective in this series? There's no way. We mentioned how much he loves playing the Lakers, and he still shot like absolute crap for Jamal in that series. And in this one, the points are a really good starting point for us. I just at 22.5 points, I don't totally trust it yet. And I don't think he's going to be rebounding or assisting for guys. Like when he's running that pick and roll, there's going to be a lot more of give it to Joker. And they also run a little bit more back to the basket stuff with Joker putting him in the post versus this team versus a lot of other teams, just to sort of keep Rudy pinned where they want him, essentially. He'll be running out to the 3-point line, but he's also taking he's taking Rudy from the top of the key. That doesn't really leave Jamal with a lot of assists for him. And the other thing is one of the main reasons, Minnesota is an incredible defense, wide rangey defenders everywhere, but they also don't give up a lot of assists because they don't double. Because they don't have to double. And maybe some guys will help off of their guys to double on Joker, but you're not helping Jaden McDaniels with Jamal Murray. You're just trying to keep Jamal Murray out of the paint more than anything off of those pick and rolls. And obviously you want to hedge over the top to get above that, to get in front of that 3. So it's just all not going to be there for him, in my opinion. And maybe he goes over this number once or twice in this series, but I think that you'll see this number drop for sure. In the 6 that he's played against them when JMD has been in, he's gone under all 6 times. And that dates back to last year and includes the playoffs as well, where and there was only one, like a half a game with McDaniels in there, right? So because that's when he punched a wall. But the stuff during the regular season too, similar to this, like still Jamal playing about 37 minutes in a couple different games. He had one game where he only played 25, so he's at 32 minutes a game in these last 6. I would say he's probably good for at least 36. I don't know that you need to put him at 40 just yet in this series. We're not quite there in the series that you're get him out there. And I don't think he's played the fewest minutes of any starter in a couple different games in this last series, because obviously he's still a little bit hurt. And otherwise he'd be out there almost as much as Joker. 14.5 field goal attempts. It's really interesting because his field goal percentages are great, but McDaniels doesn't even let him get it off. One of the best at fighting through screens over the top. And then he's going to have help all over the place with other really good defenders, as we mentioned. So the shot attempts are really what stands out to me more than anything. 14.5 attempts for Murray in the last 6 games that he's played against this team. And that he wants that to be at 20 or so. They really want it to be at around 20 for him, maybe 18 to 20 for Joker. And then obviously Michael Porter Jr. shooting about 8 threes. That's usually the distribution. And I just don't think that that's going to continue to be there for him. So if he can't pull it off, then obviously he can't get it off. He can't make a shot if he can't pull it off. So the assists, 11 potentials against his team, 6.2 assists per game, but like how many of those are contested? This team gave up the third lowest percentage of uncontested shots in the league this year. Did the Timberwolves. Like there was no, like their defense isn't let's funnel the ball to the worst shooter kind of thing. It's like, no, we all got it. We can all handle our guys one-on-one. So we're just going to stick to that and let us do our thing. And then McDaniels is a much bigger, better rebounder than Jamal, who actually was a little bit bothered in the rebound category this last series because Austin Reeves is also a pretty big, good defender. Even though he barbecued him on the way to the basket a bunch of times, he also wasn't necessarily able to like body him down low or like back him down or anything like that. So he was playing pretty far away from the basket, which is once again definitely what I expect in this one. So we'll take the under on all three of the PRA and the 34.5 there.
Yeah, it's a good stat poll is the field goal attempts that you had there because I'm looking at Jamal's playoff game log, and again, I mean mostly against the Lakers, he's like pulling 24 shots minimum, like he's just cooking, right? Because that's the way the Lakers have guarded their 2-man game, but the Wolves and in the playoffs last year, he cooked the Wolves, especially in the 3 home games. But again, Jaden was out, and I was thinking about taking Jaden over 3.5 rebounds, which is very low. Maybe coupling with the points because I want to play that motivation factor that he knows he let his team down last year and he's going to come out just on fire. But this is a way to play that too. It's just say like he's just going to come out on fire defensively, and you get plus 120, I believe, for him to have 2 stocks in this game. And I do think he might be able to get a block on Murray or a steal here, force a turnover. So yeah, there's just ways to play Jaden McDaniels that don't involve him necessarily scoring, which clearly is going to be a bit of an outlier when he does score a lot. But he's going to be out there guarding.
Yep. 100%. That's also just what makes me nervous about for the Wolves, not about anything else, but for the Wolves is like, sorry, who's your second best scorer? It's Cat. Okay. All right. I get it. Yeah, maybe, but like that's a big part of all this. So I still think we played all the series stuff correctly. We have that in the best bets as well. So you can check out how we're going to be playing these series prices.
But that's another thought is that Mike Conley is going to be the guy going at Jamal Murray and testing his health on the defensive end. And he's at 11.5 points. And like, I mean, the Wolves are balanced. Mike Conley is a guy who in the playoffs, I believe, has topped 11 points, so like very consistently. I mean, some of that was when he was in his younger days, but that was another lean I had there because of that factor with Jamal on defense.
Yeah, we've got our looks at how we think this series might go in each game, right? So we'll see how that comes to fruition in game one. Looking for things like how high is the pressure against Jamal? Is McDaniels just face guarding him and not letting him get the ball in general? That's been a part of those field goal attempts. And then how is Murray's health, and are they able to take advantage of that? Because the Lakers did, by the way. The Lakers took advantage of Jamal's health, going at him on one leg consistently with who he was guarding. So we'll see if that's the same thing for the Wolves here. But that is all the time we have for you. Gonna have some really sick series moving forward. Also got my New York Knicks, go New York, on Sunday against the Pacers. They're going to be looking at that one as well tomorrow for Sunday's action. So make sure to continue to follow along, subscribe to that page. And until we see you next, happy betting.